Hi, this is Cory McCarthy, and welcome to a new episode of Fit, Formidable, and Fantastic. That's right, go after yourself. Now, this is the first official episode in a new segment I'm going to be doing called Meatless Mondays, which will be dedicated to vegans and vegan bodybuilding, health, fitness, lifestyle, all of that. Just as I release on Fridays, but this one will be just for vegans, but not to say that everyone can't get something from it, or even potentially learn something from it. Maybe it interests you to become a vegan. So feel free to watch, even if you aren't vegan. I'm sure you'll pick something up. The topics will still be sometimes generalized, like today's, for instance. Today I'd like to discuss intermittent fasting. Specifically intermittent fasting as a vegan, which is possible, and that's why I'm doing this video. Intermittent fasting, what it is basically is essentially a period of fasting where you don't eat anything, no calorie intake whatsoever, and then followed by a window of feeding. The type of intermittent fasting I have used is the 16-8 ratio, which means 16 hours of fasting followed by 8 hours of feeding. And within that 8 hours of feeding, I also get my workout in. That's just how it fit in my schedule. Now, when I say fasted, you can't take anything in. You can drink tea, you can drink water, you can drink coffee and things like that, but you can't take anything that's caloric, impactful in during that fasting window. And some of that fasting window will be spent sleeping too, so before you start freaking out here, for instance, if your final meal is at 9 o'clock the night before, you will fast 16 hours from 9 o'clock, and that will include the time you'd be sleeping overnight, unless, of course, you work a night shift of some kind. And maybe then you can adjust your fasting window to be more geared towards whenever your sleeping hours are, even if they are daytime. So anyway, without further ado, to get into it, the form of intermittent fasting that I have used was created by Martin Birkin. It's known as Lean Gains, and that is Martin, and last name is spelled B-E-R-K-H-A-N, Birkin. And he's a pusher of the 16-8 fasting feeding windows, but he also makes the claim that vegetarians and vegans either can't or find it very difficult to take on intermittent fasting or lean gains due to protein quality, which isn't the case at all, actually. Vegans don't get, if you can refer to my previous video regarding vegans and whether vegans can bodybuild and maintain and build muscle, that is, then you will have learned that it's bullshit that vegans, and especially vegetarians, but vegans specifically here, cannot get quality protein and complete amino acids. And if you're that concerned about it, you can add branched-chain amino acids to your meals as well if you really want to supplement. You don't have to, but if you really want to supplement with it, why not add 5 to 10 grams to each meal that you consume of branched-chain amino acids? And you can get vegan products. There are vegan branched-chain amino acids out there. Vitamin Shop has a non-animal product labeled branched-chain product in their Body Tech line, at least currently they do. And Allmax Nutrition has a chart on their website which shows that they have a branched-chain amino acid product that is also vegan. So it is possible to do that even without supplementing. And there are combinations that I discussed in the previous video, like pea protein, rice protein, for your protein powder choice that can actually rival whey and actually beat whey, considering even has more of an arginine content than whey does. And that is 70% pea isolate with a 30% rice concentrate mixture. Basically, that is that. Now, what the gist is to intermittent fasting, and you just will simply veganize it, is you will have that 16-hour fasting window. Now, the reason why that's important is that helps you burn body fat. By the 12 to 14-hour mark, you begin to oxidize body fat stores that you have on you. And then you just continue on and ride that out to 16. Beyond that, I mean, you could go longer, but that's really the end of the beneficial line to fasting. For this diet, like I said, you can go longer. You can go up to 48 hours if you want to without having any kind of muscle loss, but you're really not going to see much more benefit past 16 hours. So 16 hours of fasting followed by an 8-hour feeding window. Now what you want to do is you want to break your fasting period with a meal that contains starchy carbohydrates and fruits. Specifically, berries are a really good choice here. I guess you could use apples, you could use bananas, but berries are a very good choice. And starchy stuff. I tended to break my fast with corn or rice, but usually it was corn, and a nice heaping serving of broccoli with a serving of tofu, a certain amount of tofu, depending on what my requirements were, and a big old bowl of berries, basically, is what I would do. And you want to get about approximately, since this is going to be a pre-workout feeding, you want to get approximately 20% of your daily calories in that feeding. I would typically have one more feeding about 2 to 3 hours later that would still be pre-workout by an additional 2 to 3 hours, and that would be a meal much the same. It would be berries, probably bananas. Usually I do a smoothie at that point in time of protein powder, berries, and bananas using filtered water. And then I would 2 to 3 hours later have my workout, which would be followed by a post-workout shake containing carbohydrates, dextrose specifically, in the amount of 0.25 grams per pound of body weight. And that would be my post-workout shake. And then I would have my dinner. Now, your dinner meal is post-lifting, and that'll be your final meal of the day, and it's your biggest meal of the day on lifting days. It's typically 60% of your daily calories. The first two are 20 and 20, or if you're only doing 140. And but the final meal is 60%. It's the largest meal of your daily calories. And so that's how you divide it up. You know, just divide up 20% in the first meal if you're doing like I did, 20% of your carbs, protein, fat in that meal, the one that breaks the fast. And then if you're doing a second meal before you work out, 20% of your carbs, protein, and fat in that meal. And then finally, for your dinner, 60% of the carbs, protein, and fat that are remaining for the day. And that would be on lifting days. And I was doing it for fat loss, so my calories per day, and you can get this from a Google search. There are definitely a lot of frequently asked question pages out there, and Martin delves into this, but I was doing a fat loss version of Lean Gains, which is 10% calories over my maintenance on workout days and 30% to 35% calories below maintenance on rest days. And that would include days where I would do cardio only and no lifting. So on the rest days, what you would do is you'd have your largest meal be your first meal. And I would usually do, you know, about 40% of my daily calories in that first meal that breaks the fast. Again, following the starchy carbs and fruit rule. And then I would have, again, 20% in my next meal, and then I would have, 30% in my next meal, and then 30% in my final meal later that evening, and there wouldn't be a workout. Now, you don't really need to do cardio unless you have some sport-specific reason to do it, beyond just, you know, maybe a 30 or 45-minute walk during your fasting period on rest days. But you can do that if you want to. But it's not necessary on a Lean Gains intermittent fasting style diet for fat loss. The fat loss will occur anyway. And typically you would lift, as Martin recommends, 3 days a week, and that's what I did too. I did 3 days a week. I focused on the really heavy compound moves, and I would do those in a rep range of about 6 to 8 reps, usually around the 6 side of things. And I would do 4 sets of that, and then I would have a bunch of accessory movements that I would continue on. So sort of a power bodybuilding style of lifting. And yeah, it's completely doable as a vegan. And I wanted to really emphasize that here. Anyone can be doing Lean Gains, so even if you're not a vegan, you're watching this, you can do Lean Gains, but or intermittent fasting rather. But specifically, vegans can do it. and I've even seen other vegans successfully do it. So please don't be deterred by anything you read about how vegans don't have the right quality of proteins to do intermittent fasting properly. So anyway, that really concludes. If you have any questions, feel free to leave comments below, and I will happily get back to you and answer. Beyond that, stay tuned for this Friday's normally scheduled episode. And until then, stay fit, stay formidable, and stay fantastic. See you around.